There is a fundamental misunderstanding about what it means to be kosher. My name is Gloria Cobrin of KosherByGloria.com. I'm a cook who happens to keep kosher. I'd like to believe that I make food so delicious, it's sinful. When you keep kosher, you can't break the rules, but you can find a way to make the rules taste better. I had never heard of Armenian meatballs before I started to make them. About 10-15 years ago, a group of us went on an art tour of Russia, and I decided to make a cocktail party so that everyone could meet each other and get a feeling for Russian food, because most of us don't eat meat out, so I wanted people to feel what and taste what actual Russian food smelled like, tasted like, looked like. So I did a lot of research into Russian recipes and came up with these Armenian meatballs, but depending on where the borders lay. They were Armenian, they were Georgian, they were Russian, and they were a really big success. The herbs and spices in this recipe for Armenian meatballs make these the most delicious meatballs you'll ever eat. We begin by adding vegetable oil and olive oil to a skillet over a medium flame. Then we saute chopped onions for about 8 minutes or until they become soft and translucent. Stir in garlic, pine nuts, and raisins. So we're just going to stir all that around, and basically this has to cook until the onions begin to toast a little bit. Stir this mixture until the onions and nuts are lightly colored. This takes about 15 minutes. In this bowl, I have some ground veal and some ground beef, which I like to mix together for the Armenian meatballs. My onions are still sauteing, so I'm going to mix some of the stuff up together while it's cooking. Place chopped beef and veal in a mixing bowl. Add egg, crumbs, minced cilantro and mint, cinnamon, allspice, hot paprika, and water to the meat. Then add the onion mixture. Mix thoroughly. You can use a fork, but I prefer to use my hands and really feel the ingredients come together. At that point, you take small amounts of the meat mixture and lightly form fluffy meatballs, about the size of small walnuts. Sprinkle flour on a flat surface and dredge the newly formed meatballs in the flour and put them aside. I'm just making these very lightly. Again, not bunching them up and making really tight little balls, because then they come out like lead and people say, ugh, why did they eat that? This is like a light, fluffy little thing. The meatballs have now been rolled in flour. I'm going to move them over and bring over another frying pan. You can wash out the first frying pan. This is a little easier just to have a clean one sitting here. I'm going to add a little more vegetable oil and a little more olive oil. And heat it up. Add several meatballs at a time to hot oil. Don't crowd them. You will have to cook the meatballs in several batches. So these have to cook a little bit on each side, so I'm just going to have to wait just a minute for these to brown a little bit, and then we flip them over and move them to the other side, and then they cook for a little bit in the oil with the top on, so you're sure they're cooked through. Saute meatballs until brown on all sides. So now all these meatballs have been turned over. I'm going to lower the heat a little bit, and I'm going to cover them to be sure that they steam, so the insides, the outsides are all browned, but we need the inside to fully cook before we serve them. Cook for another 10 minutes, shaking the pan occasionally. Remove meatballs from skillet with a slotted spoon and drain on paper towels. Serve hot or at room temperature with sour plum sauce.